Mount Massive Asylum is located in the mountains of Lake County, Colorado. In the 50s and 60s, the CIA conducted mind control experiments at Mount Massive. Luckily, the asylum was shut down amid scandal and government secrecy in 1971, which put a stop to the experiments. Unfortunately, in 2009, Mount Massive Asylum was reopened by the Murkoff Corporation under their Murkoff Psychiatric Systems branch. Murkoff Psychiatric Systems claims to be a charitable organization. The truth is, they're anything but. Murkoff reopened Mount Massive with one goal in mind: Project Walrider. Project Walrider is an illegal and unethical trial, which uses human test subjects to develop a lucid dream-powered super soldier. Today's video will look at Project Walrider, who is behind the project, what is the project's purpose, and where does the project go wrong.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, everyone. And welcome to the Snack Covenant, episode 296. Today, we're talking about Project Walrider, developed by the Murkoff Corporation.
Hello to everyone who's new to the podcast. We usually discuss Soulsborne lore, but today we wanted to dive into the world of Outlast. In this episode, we're going to look at Project Walrider and see just where it went wrong.
Thank you, Sophie. And we'll focus on Outlast 1 and Whistleblower specifically. We will not go into detail about the comics or Outlast 2 today.
That's good, because I did some preliminary research and I learned that the comics actually introduced several plot holes about the Walrider. I still don't know what the Walrider actually is.
Well, Sophie, you do know about a Walrider.
I do know what a Walrider is in terms of folklore.
Mm-hmm.
A Walrider is one of the names for, the experience that you have when you're suffering sleep paralysis. It comes from the idea that when you are suffering sleep paralysis, you're stuck, in your bed, you can't move, you're conscious, and you feel like you're suffocating. You feel like there's something on you. That's where the rider part comes from. If you're familiar with Fuseli's painting The Nightmare, that's sort of what it's evoking. It's a very famous painting of, it's a woman who is lying in bed, and there's a sort of horrible, sort of imp demon thing crouched on her chest. And behind her, you can see the curtains are parting, and there's this horrible sort of horse monster sort of leering in. It's like a pun on the idea of the nightmare, a male horse.
Thank you, Sophie. In order to bring everyone up to speed on what's going on in Outlast, we're going to do a meditation exercise. I'd like everyone to take a deep breath and close your eyes. Now imagine your name is Miles Upshur, and you're an investigative journalist. On September 17th, 2013, you get an anonymous email describing the horrors happening at Mount Massive Asylum. Being a journalist, you don't wait. You get into your car and arrive at Mount Massive as soon as possible to look into what's going on. As you drive up to the gates of Mount Massive, you notice that the facility is closed. That's not gonna stop me, you tell yourself, as you grab your night vision camera, exit your vehicle, and break into Mount Massive through a window. You quickly realize that something is wrong. The facility is a mess. On the one hand, it looks like there's been a break-in. On the other hand, there's blood and guts all over the place, and it looks like most of the staff has been...
On one hand, it's a separate process. As an investigative journalist, we're sitting there weighing up I've been in the journalism game these 20 years. Taking my environment in. On the one hand, it may have been a break-in. On the other hand, a ton of dismembered body parts and blood everywhere. Everyone's dead. Something's up.
Thank you so much.
That's good, because he's a journalist, so you have to get both sides of the story.
Exactly. Thank you, Sophie. After exploring Mount Massive, you become trapped there. So you spend the rest of the night trying to find an exit. In this facility, the smell is putrid. The conditions are abhorrent. As you encounter residents of Mount Massive, it becomes clear they have been neglected and abused. As the night progresses, while looking for a way out, you realize that the residents have been experimented on against their will. Although a lot of the residents don't attack you, you encounter a few violent people who chase, threaten, and physically injure you. Eventually, you find an underground lab where you encounter a Nazi scientist who tells you that in order to leave the facility, you have to kill Billy by unplugging his life support.
But Sin, who's Billy?
Well, Billy is a man located in the Morphogenic engine chamber. He is controlling an entity called the Walrider through lucid dreaming. Billy is Walrider's host. The Walrider, a being made of nanites, is responsible for the massacre that took place in Mount Massive that day. So you do just that. You turn off Billy's life support. At this point, you get possessed by the Walrider, and you, in turn, become its host.
This is a terrible meditation exercise.
As you head for the exit, the Nazi scientist appears in front of you with the Markov tactical team escorting him. They shoot you. The Walrider retaliates and rips them into pieces. After this encounter, you finally leave the institution. You don't know if the Walrider brought you back to life. You don't know if you're a puppet controlled by the Walrider. You don't know if you and the Walrider merged to form a new entity. You just know that you made it out as you watch the sunrise on the steps of Mount Massive. You also see a dude that you saved like 3 minutes ago from imminent death, and he's still in your car in the distance. Now, I'd like everyone to open your eyes and exhale. Thank you, Sin. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin. That was very relaxing. I particularly enjoyed the morphogenic engine chamber. Just throwing that out there, it's a morphogenic engine chamber. I'm really going to explain it. Now, unfortunately, during this meditation exercise, in which I'm assuming we astral projected into Mount Massive, we were unable to find the Walrider research protocol. But it's okay because we have the angelic outline.
And he saw the angel standing in his way, his sword drawn. And the angel said unto him,
Here are the top 10 most powerful Elden Ring characters if they are in the Warhammer universe and could use the Force.
So, in a little bit of a divergence from the way we usually do these, because Sin is the Outlast expert, I am the one who is going to ask Sin the questions. So, Sin, what is the title of this study?
Project Walrider.
Can you tell us a little bit about this project and its inception?
So, this is a secret project, and its purpose is to create Walriders using human hosts and a morphogenic engine. And Walriders are basically super soldiers. This project was initiated by Markov Psychiatric Systems, which is a branch of the Markov Corporation. It's very possible that Markov Corporation created this branch specifically for the project.
All right.
But Markov didn't come up with this. We have documents dating back to the 1930s which indicate that a Nazi scientist by the name of Rudolf Wernicke was working on the morphogenic engine at the time, and he even succeeded in either making a Walrider or a prototype,
Right.
or something like that.
Okay.
Moreover, there are documents indicating that in the 1950s, the CIA showed interest in the project as well. And in 2009, Markov was like, we're the smartest ones. We're going to bring this to fruition. But they were really only able to make one Walrider in 4 years. And the project ended on September 18th, 2013, when the Walrider escaped and massacred quite a few people at Mount Massive.
Yeah, okay.
Very Lawrence vibes.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Walrider being a super soldier.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little more about the practical aspects of a Walrider? Alright, I need you to put me in a Walrider today. You gotta imagine I'm a defense contractor. You're with Murkoff. Is it Markov or Murkoff because you've written both? I don't even know.
I cannot tell a lie. The correct spelling is Murkoff with a U. Now back to the podcast.
So you gotta imagine I'm down here, you gotta impress me. You're gonna look at me and think, what's it gonna take to put this lady in a Walrider today?
So, a Walrider is this foggy humanoid figure that is composed of a swarm of nanites.
Okay,
And the Walrider can be controlled by a human host through lucid dreaming.
right.
We have a document showing that the day the Walrider escaped, Murkoff Hardline Security was sent in to take care of the situation. The document states the following.
Affidavits having been made before the board of directors by Murkoff, Hardline Security (MHS), who have reason to believe catastrophic security failure of psychiatric center with immediate danger of environment contamination. We are satisfied that the affidavits and testimony establish sufficient evidence to require urgent action on the part of MHS and grounds for the issuance of this warrant. You are hereby required to grant MHS full access to the facilities and surrender complete authority to its agents. By accepting this document, you and any surviving relatives surrender all claims of litigation against Murkoff Corp. Or its subsidiaries for the actions of MHS or the circumstances which required their actions regardless of responsibility.
Thank you, Sophie.
I think the Healing Church sent those out. That's why the whole Ligarius executioner thing happened. Because they're just like, he doesn't really work for us. The executioners are independent contractors. They are not directly employed by the Healing Church, and all such contracts are under constant review.
So they send in those teams, right?
Yeah.
And the Walrider takes everyone out.
That sounds very good. I mean, it's working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm listening. I'm liking this thing.
Okay, so Sophie, let me tell
Right,
you, the
okay.
Walrider is strong,
Yep.
it's fast,
Yep.
and since it's made of nanites, it goes to places regular humans can't go.
Or regular anything, really, because it's like nanites.
It's true.
I like how you said regular humans as if, like, it's like, we can't technically say all humans because, like, Mr. Fantastic exists. The guy from Hellboy who's a sentient gas.
However, I must tell you, the Walrider is not perfect.
Ooh.
On the one hand, there are places he can't seem to go.
Mm-hmm.
There are purge gates all over the facility, which are basically these like disinfecting chambers.
Yeah.
They contain a green substance that seems to prevent the Walrider from passing.
Shouldn't you know what it is?
We just know it's a green substance in the purging gates. Which brings up another point. The person enters into the chamber, right?
Yeah.
The walls release this gas, I guess.
Yeah.
And the person's just like breathing it in, waiting to be disinfected, and then leaves. I wonder what effect that has on the employees.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the Walrider seems to need a human host to function.
Right, so this human host thing, how do we use one of them to create a Walrider?
That's an excellent question, Sophie. Now, to create a Walrider, you actually need a couple of things. You need a participant.
Right, is that strictly voluntary or?
Next question.
Certainly.
You need a specific type of therapy. You need lucid dreaming. You need a morphogenic engine.
Where's this coming from? You've just been talking about the morphogenic engine like we all know what they are. It's a common piece of hardware. Just any off-the-shelf morphogenic engine will do.
You will also need precursor molecules.
Of course. Do they have to be brand name precursor molecules, or will generic ones do?
I just had a vision of like 5 minutes craft being like how to make your own Walrider at home. So, Sophie,
Mm-hmm.
assuming you have a participant on hand,
Right.
you must submit the participant to traumatic therapy.
Mm-hmm.
The therapy is intended to induce an overwhelming madness, a feeling of a proximity to death.
Right.
This is done because, according to Rudolf Wernicke, only a participant who witnesses enough horror is capable of activating the morphogenic engine. I'm not-
What is it?
It's coming.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on what every component of the therapy is, but a visual stimulus is for sure part of the therapy. And you actually saw the visual
I
stimulus.
did. Yes, I said it looked like the 1960s Doctor Who opening.
Yeah, and when I saw what the opening looks like, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why these specific images were picked to sort of destabilize someone, but I will show you one of them, and I'd
Okay.
like you to describe it.
So what you've shown me, it looks like something that you would see in those like top 10 disturbing photographs no one can explain countdowns. And it appears to be someone dressed in a mascot chicken suit,
Yeah.
and they are holding a piece of board or paper or something that's very large under their arm. Maybe they're on their way to make a presentation. Perhaps they're also selling Walriders. And the image has been mirrored horizontally, and it's been mirrored vertically. So you just sort of see like the four variants of this image from different angles, basically.
So you said you think this is a Walrider salesman?
I'm not saying that it is a Walrider salesman. I'm saying that if it was my job to sell human experimentation to the CIA, I would also probably wear a mask in public while I was doing it. And this comical chicken mask, maybe that would distract people from what was on the board I was holding. Hi, Sophie here. Sin's asked me to explain a few of the real-world events that inspired Outlast. Operation Paperclip was a United States intelligence program in which the government rescued and subsequently employed about 1,600 Nazis. MKUltra was a program of illegal human experimentation carried out by the CIA in an attempt to develop a truth drug. The Mount Massive Asylum is also based on a real-life asylum, the Richardson-Olmsted Complex in New York. This asylum was also used as the basis of Yosefka's clinic in Bloodborne. Back to the podcast.
To return to the horrible therapy, some of the participants are malnourished, so starvation may have been a component of that therapy.
Yeah.
You also find this room with a chair in the middle, and I'm wondering if strapping someone to a chair and leaving them in a dark room was part of it as well.
Yeah.
So once a participant's mind is fractured enough from all this torture, they're taken to the morphogenic engine room
Mm-hmm.
and placed into the morphogenic engine chamber.
Right. So, as you know, I've been asking for a while. I'm into this Walrider thing, but I need to know, what is a morphogenic engine? Why do I need one? Where do I get one? What does it do?
Let me give you a testimonial of one of the participants who was forced into the project against their will.
Oh, that should be great.
Here's how they describe the engine.
The engine. The movie they're projecting. It gets in my head like a song you can't stop humming. I blink and I see Rorschach tests that look like swarming insects and infected surgery wounds. The patients talk about using the engine to conjure the Walrider. It's the buzzing I hear in my bones.
So the morphogenic engine room is this giant room,
Yeah.
and it's connected to these other rooms in which you have computers, you have life support, you have other types of technology. Now, the giant room, in the center, kind of like hanging off the ceiling, there's a giant globe. And then on the floor, They're chambers, the morphogenic engine chambers, which are actually fluid-filled orbs.
Very altered states.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go. And these orbs is where you place the participants.
So, I've got a question. Do participants need to be necessarily willing to get in the orbs?
Well, nobody's willing to get into the orbs, Sophie. And you also have like technicians and guards all over the place,
Yeah.
and they're controlling everything that happens there. It's like a really big and complicated operation, basically, running this whole morphogenic engine room.
So, can you go into a little bit more detail on what people mean when they say, like, morphogenic engine?
That's another very good question, Sophie. There's a reference to the engine using an algorithm. We hear the whistleblower say, "They made me watch the engine," referring to the visual stimulus.
Yeah.
The whistleblower also says, "The engine's only message is hunger, to crush, and to consume."
Mm-hmm.
So I think the word engine may be used to refer to the whole process behind the Walrider study.
That makes sense because, like, a lot of terminology, there's, like, a lay understanding of it that is not the way it would be used, like, clinically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we talk about, like, tools, a lot of people think a tool has to be, like, a physical object, but, like, methods of thought are tools. Bodies of knowledge are tools, things like that.
Cognitive tests or tools.
Yeah. So the engine would be, like, the entire project, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sophie.
So, can you explain the chamber that we place our subject in the morphogenic engine?
Right. So the chamber is this big orb filled with fluid.
Right.
And that's where you put your participants. And while in the chamber, the participant is yet again exposed to the visual stimulus from before.
Right.
Moreover, there are tubes inserted into the participant's body.
Right.
This is necessary for several reasons. The tubes allow the participant to survive in the fluid. There's also anesthetics that are injected through the tubes to obviously reduce pain.
Yeah.
There's also hormones that are injected.
Right.
And I'm not entirely sure whether the hormone therapy is there to help with lucid dreaming or whether it's there to help with nanite formation. And speaking of lucid dreaming, we have a document that mentions it. Could you please read it?
Patient claims to have progressed to self-directed lucid dream states. Morphogenic engine activity observed at an unprecedented scale, continuing stage 4 hormone schedule.
So I'm not entirely sure if the participants are able to practice lucid dreaming outside the chamber, or if this whole thing only happens in the morphogenic engine chamber.
Right.
But we're told that the Walrider can be controlled by a host through lucid dreaming, and it looks like while in the chamber, the participant is in some sort of a trance.
Right.
So the assumption is that they're lucid dreaming while in the chamber. Another use of the tubes is that they're used to inject the precursor molecules.
Uh-huh.
In chemistry, a precursor is a compound that participates in a chemical reaction that produces another compound.
Right.
So basically, after the injection of these molecules, the human body can produce nanites. Wernicke states that this whole process turns cells of human bodies into nanofactories.
Okay.
And I'm assuming the same tubes are used to extract the nanites.
I was just wondering how they got them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess like the swarm of nanites is stored somewhere as it materializes into a Walrider.
All right, you've sold me on the morphogenic engine. I'm not sure about the Walrider. So, big question I've got about the Walrider.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot of stories about the Walrider maybe going wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm also told the Walrider seems to be controlled by people.
Yeah.
And the Walrider also seems to be made of nano machines that are a human waste product.
Yeah.
What is the Walrider? Is the Walrider an entity in itself, or is the Walrider like a robot that you're driving subconsciously?
That is a very good question, though. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it's sentient. I don't know if Billy controls it the entire time. I don't know if there's a merging of consciousness.
Does it really take an entire morphogenic engine to make one Walrider?
I mean, this is the only successful Walrider we know of at this facility in the past 4 years.
Before now, this was the only way to get nanites out of a human body. There's got to be an easier way. Now there is, with the morphogenic engine.
You know what I wonder? I wonder, where do they store the Walrider? Do you store him in that giant globe that hangs off the ceiling?
If they're making the nanites from the precursor molecules,
Yeah?
is there a way to do that, like, just without, like, surely there's a way to make that happen faster?
I'll be honest with you, Sophie, I don't think Wernicke was a very good scientist.
Hmm.
Maybe with a proper PI,
Yeah.
this would have gone better. Maybe not doing this entire thing at all would have been a better idea.
That's true of a lot of similar experiments in real life.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a lot of problems with this project.
Mhm.
I want to know who's in charge. Like, is the person who runs this, like, is he in any way problematic?
Well, his name is Rudolf Wernicke,
Uh-huh.
and they're actually a Nazi scientist.
Ooh.
Yeah. But that's also a real life thing, right?
Yeah, that was Operation Paperclip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Operation Paperclip is actually mentioned in Outlast as something that happened in that universe.
What happened it happened in the universe.
It happened also.
It happened on Earth 616. Like, it.
No, what I mean is it happened in Outlast as well.
Yes, yeah. But isn't Outlast basically just set in the real world? And then there's like stuff happens in the 2000s, and it's not like an alternate history.
You just blew my mind. Yeah.
It's a secondary world fantasy.
Okay, well that makes sense. They want to say this happens in our world. Thank you, Sophie.
Okay. So, other than the Nazi, who else worked on this thing?
Well, in the past, I guess around the 30s and 40s, Wernicke worked with Alan Turing on theories which would eventually lead to the development of the morphogenic engine.
That's a shame, because I always heard Turing was a nice guy.
Yeah, so you see, this is why I thought this was another universe, like another Earth. I don't think this happened in our
Well,
Earth.
obviously it didn't really happen, but, like, it's...
Also, there are implications that Wernicke and Turing kind of like loved each other.
Well, because, like, Turing's sexuality is, like, a well-known thing. Lots of bad things happen to him because of it.
Yeah.
So, who is sponsoring this study? Where's this money coming from?
The money is coming from the Markov Corporation.
Right.
They're big and powerful, and they're known for being horrible, but people can't really do anything about it.
See, it is set in real life.
Are you ready to embark on an adventure? Are you looking to make a difference in the world? Are you searching for a meaningful career? Have we got news for you? The Markov Corporation is a transnational organization that relentlessly pushes the frontier of scientific research and development. Partnering with the greatest minds of tomorrow, Markov expands the research of every branch of scientific inquiry, including gene therapy, behavioral psychology, information technology, and medicine. Our wonderful team consists of a board of directors that cares, a security team that keeps you safe, a legal team that stands by you, and a Nazi scientist that will definitely not make you unwilling participants in one of his stupid experiments. What are you waiting for? Apply today and join the last place you'll ever work.
So, dare I ask, what are they trying to achieve by extracting nanites from traumatized people to make a kill a cloud of gas?
Well, Sophie, the answer is profit.
Late at night, I think of you, your vision floods my mind.
Here's an email from Helen Granat. She's in Markov Legal Medication Department.
Right.
Could you please read what she said?
The profit potential of Project Walrider remains staggeringly high. Project Walrider remains a dangerous initiative, and there will almost certainly be further casualties. As with others, however, family and government interest in the patients is so low as to make any chance of legal actions vanishingly unlikely.
Yeah, they're like literally monsters.
So this, again, tracks with like the historical precedents for this sort of experiment, because when you look at something like MKUltra, they specifically picked on people who they knew like either would not defend themselves, or didn't have the means to defend themselves, or didn't want to talk about like what had happened to them. So there were a lot of like homeless people, people who had like substance addictions, people who were in institutions. They did a lot of stings involving people and like sex workers and clients, because that was illegal, and it was also something that they didn't want to talk about. So if you stung someone that way, like they wouldn't bring it up, because they would have to mention, oh yes, by the way, I was with a sex worker at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that sort of tracks. Like it's the sort of people that traditionally got targeted by this stuff.
Yeah, it's really sad. And you know how normally a study has an inclusion and an exclusion criteria?
So we talked about that with reference to Bloodborne a lot,
Mm-hmm.
where the Healing Church's methodology was that the inclusion criteria was that the Healing Church could find you. And the exclusion criteria was that you were on the other side of a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Murkoff is very similar. Like, the only reason they would not want you in their study is if you're dead. And also, you mentioned how in real life, the CIA recruited people.
Recruited. Two little quotes here.
So the way Markov recruited participants
Yeah.
must have been the same way as the CIA recruited them.
So the Murkoff psychiatric systems,
Mm-hmm.
they would pose as a charitable organization,
Yes.
and offer to heal people. Again, similar to Bloodborne, the notion that we will heal you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people who would need treatment or would want treatment would probably admit themselves or be admitted by their families with the hope that they'd get better.
Mhm.
And interestingly enough, like literally anyone could become a participant, because their own employees, if they step out of line, they're enrolled in the experiment against their will, obviously.
Oh no.
We do have proof that Markov preys on people who are vulnerable.
Yeah.
Among other things, the situation with Billy shows it. And Billy is the participant who was able to create the Walrider. And we have a note that talks about Billy's situation. Could you please read it?
Please find attached the permission to proceed form for patient William Hope of the Murkoff Charitable Psychiatry Program at Mount Massive Hospital in Colorado. The form is standard and all relevant lines have been signed. It appears Billy is unaware of his mother's recent guided cardiac arrest. He is submitting to the experiment with the understanding, unfounded, of financial remuneration to his mother and a charitable contribution to her church. Now, I have something to say here about more antecedents for
Okay.
this story. So, I knew that there's a character called Billy. This is the first time I learned his full name, which is William Hope. There was a contemporary of Lovecraft who wrote similar fiction, and his name was William Hope Hodgson. He actually died in World War One. But one of his most famous stories is actually about a military project that uses people's like mental states as a weapon. And it's two titles for it. It's sometimes called Eloi Eloi Lama Sabachthani, and sometimes it's called the Balmoth Explosive. But it's about this a scientist who's also a very devoutly religious man. And he attempts to basically harness what he believes to be the energy that was expelled by Christ during the crucifixion. So he puts himself in this like trance state where he tries to relive the crucifixion by sort of like going into this altered state situation. And when he finally like snaps and breaks through, and there's this sudden extremely powerful explosion, and the explosion is implied to be like he's broken down sort of the barriers between two worlds and something got through that just like broke everything apart. And it ends with the narrator realizing that like this is actually being used by the army now. The way that they specifically called him William Hope, I think, might actually be a deliberate callback to that.
Oh, definitely, now that you say it. Yeah, for sure. Good catch, Sophie.
Thank you. So earlier you mentioned that employees of Murkoff can sometimes end up participating.
Yeah, it does happen. Let me give you a couple of examples.
Okay.
David Annapurna was an orderly who worked at Mount Massive during the time of the Walrider experiment.
Right.
And he wrote an email to HR which said,
"This is my third time asking for reassignment after 2 months without an answer. I don't want to work at Mount Massive anymore. I have been an orderly for my entire adult life, but have never experienced such a consistent level of secrecy and disrespect. I even have suspicions that some of the patients may be being abused. I know personally 2 of them who have been moved to the basement ward and never returned. If I don't get an answer to this email, I will be forced to resign and may very well consider contacting the press. Thank you for your time."
and do you know what happened to him as a result of this email?
No, Sin, I wonder what happened.
Well, he was institutionalized at Mount Massive. The reason they gave was persecutional delusions, and the recommendation was treatment should continue until the time of his death. And you know the whistleblower?
That's like a DLC or something?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I saw you streaming it.
Yeah, so the protagonist of the whistleblower,
Yeah,
his name is Waylon Park,
right.
and he worked as a consultant at Mount Massive,
What did he consult on?
like IT.
I'm trying to imagine like we need a morphogenic engine consultant.
Well, he kind of was in a way, because when they had a problem with the engine, they're like, Park, come here.
Yeah.
Fix this. And he's trying to like code the engine while all these horrible things happen in the background, like a participant is trying to escape.
Yeah.
And well, working there traumatized Park to the point where he attempted to expose the horrors of Mount Massive by writing an email to the journalist, Miles Upshur. And Sophie, we actually have the email here.
But don't let anyone know.
Could you please read it?
"You don't know me. Have to make this quick. They might be monitoring. I did 2 weeks of software consult at Murkoff's Psychiatric Systems facility in Mount Massive. All sorts of NDAs I am very much breaking right now, but seriously, fuck those guys. Terrible things happening here. Don't understand it. Don't believe half the things I saw. Doctors talking about dream therapy going too deep. Finding something that had been waiting for them in the mountain. People are being hurt and Murkoff is making money. It needs to be exposed."
And I don't know what possessed Park to send this email from work.
Yeah.
But the higher-ups found out about it, and like the same day, within the same 10 minutes, they imprisoned him in the asylum and signed him up for Project Walrider.
Right.
And you know what? Jeremy Blair, he's an employee of Markov. He contacted Park's wife, telling her that her husband has been institutionalized, but making it clear she cannot do anything about it, and if she tried, it wouldn't go well for her.
Right.
So yeah, there's like no consenting process in this project, and everything is illegal and unethical. And clearly people don't want to participate, and they're forced to do so. And they're sedated, they're restrained, they're manipulated into participating.
Yeah.
They even use mind tricks. Like we find this one note where a participant says they were promised that if they were part of this project, they would be released from Mount Massive.
Right, yeah.
So clearly that's a mind game, because nobody's getting released from it, you know?
Yeah, this is making me think actually of stuff I've read about people who become wards of the state without consent. Like, people who sort of like they just need like one sort of like mental breakdown. Like they end up like in a psychiatric ward like one time for one thing.
Mhm.
And then basically if some papers get signed, they're not allowed out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really messed up.
Yeah. So we've learned a lot about Project Walrider.
Uh-huh.
They basically traumatize people, use their bodies to produce nanomachines that are then controlled by someone who's stuck in an orb, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's run by a Nazi,
Yeah.
extremely unethical,
Yeah.
no consenting process. I just need to know before I sign off on this,
Okay.
are there any side effects?
There's a couple. The obvious one being a worsening mental state. We also have examples of self-inflicted injuries.
Right.
And you know how when you go in the morphogenic engine chamber...
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, you going to know I don't. I don't. I am perfectly happy with my morphogenic engine-free existence. I don't want to go in the morphogenic engine. I don't want to hear about the morphogenic engine. I want as little contact with the morphogenic engine as possible.
Basically, you can develop issues related to your respiratory system because of this
Okay.
chamber, right?
Yeah.
And there's also a document stating that you can experience extensive dermal eruptions as consistent with failed morphogenic engine cellular activity. By failed morphogenic engine cellular activity, I'm assuming they mean the nanites didn't form properly.
Yeah.
But participants don't get, and I'm doing air quotes here,
Yeah.
excessive dermal eruptions. A lot of participants have like scars and deformities and tumors made of pure lead as a result of being in the orb.
So that's like that. The tumors, they're like unformed nanomachines. They're like,
Exactly.
metal, collecting in the body. Yeah.
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 Another thing is that a lot of the participants are bald, but I'm not sure if that's
Right.
a side effect of the engine or their heads have been shaved.
I mean, if you're going to mostly be suspended in an orb, it makes sense to not have much hair.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, there's evidence of Markov improving conditions for the participants. There's a note that says the rashes associated with hormone therapy have receded and vanished since we stopped using latex tubing. But I don't think that was on purpose.
After an audit. After an audit in which we were forced to create a patient impact report.
Oh my god.
We were given a list of over 250 crimes against humanity that we had that we conducted here. And we took it upon ourselves to solve one of them, which was the improper use of latex tubing, an important step forward for Murkoff. We're committed to phasing out our crimes against humanity by 2035. Hello, everybody. We're about halfway through the podcast, so I'm just here to remind you all to stretch, snack, and stay hydrated. While you're doing that, Sin's given me a list of Murkoff side effects and would like me to read them to you. May cause eye discoloration. May cause changes to pigmentation of skin. May cause muscle deterioration. May cause bone deterioration. May cause loss of vision. May cause extra skin to grow over part of your body, such as your eyes or mouth. May cause displacement of teeth. May cause reduced sensitivity to pain. May cause complete breakdown of mind, body, and soul. This is why it's important for everybody to stretch and stay hydrated. Now, back to the podcast.
You know what else? Some of the side effects were actually experienced by employees just being in the proximity of this whole thing. There's a risk of false pregnancies, and we actually have a document that talks about it.
More than 7 female employees and patients had reached fictitious half-term pregnancies in a matter of weeks before miscarrying their non-existent children, 5 of them fatally. Female employees were moved to higher floors of the facility, then to other buildings, and eventually off the Mount Massive facility.
Mm-hmm. We also find a pamphlet directed at employees encouraging them to talk to their supervisor if they're experiencing psychopathologist proximity stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure what it is, but can be good. And throughout the facility, we encounter participants with various injuries,
Right.
and some are more severe than others. And I'm guessing the more time you spend in the morphogenic engine chamber, the worse your side
Yeah.
effects are,
Yeah.
which makes me think they just keep putting people into the chamber until they die.
Yeah.
And one last note, the side effects are known as varying effects.
Right.
And varying effects seem to be the norm rather than exception in the study. Yet a lot of the staff at Markov call people who experience side effects variants. So it's almost like instead of saying participants, the staff use variants to further dehumanize the people in the study.
Yeah, that makes sense. So can you tell us about the people that they use in this study?
Yeah, and I found this really sad because
Yeah.
when you explore Mount Massive, there's a lot of
Yeah.
participants. And a lot of them, have scars, they have injuries. A lot of them are lethargic, they're scared, they express wanting to get out of there. They're curled up in a ball.
Yeah.
And some of them help you. Like there's a moment where somebody grabs you and another participant pushes them off. There's a moment where there's a participant who tells you to be careful, warns you of upcoming danger, that upcoming danger being Eddie Gluskin. And there's another moment where Eddie is about to murder you, but a
Yeah.
participant stops him.
Right.
So a lot of the time, they help you.
Yeah.
So it's not like the people that are experimented on, they become ruthless killers after one
Yeah,
treatment or something. It's like this is a whole gradual process. They're chipping away at good people's minds.
Right.
There are, however, participants who do want to hurt us. We don't know the history of every one of them, but the ones we do know, they have an extremely traumatic past or a history of past violent behavior.
Right.
So again, the effect of the engine is worse on them.
Right.
So all that to say is that a lot of the participants are nonviolent, and it makes me think that people who were experimented on just wanted to get better, and they will never get better because of what was done to them, and it's really sad.
So is everybody who works in the asylum in on what Murkoff is doing?
It seems like not everybody working at Mount Massive knows about what's happening. This is an email from Dr. Neil Wolfman, an employee at Mount Massive, in which he expresses concern over the cancellation of an art program. Could you please read it?
My patient, Martin Archambault, has made enormous strides in his therapy on account of his finger painting. Just in the week since cancelling the arts program, his schizoaffective assertions of some higher calling have accelerated enormously. Please just let the man finger paint. The few dollars you're saving on tempera paint is more than swallowed up by the cost of clozapine. I can't imagine the logic at play here unless Murkoff wants our patients to become more disengaged from reality.
So clearly he has no idea what's happening. But a lot of people are in on it. Technicians who work in the morphogenic engine room, doctors who administer the tests, security, supervisors. And when the Walrider breaks free, those people actually prevent other people from getting outside help. You're not allowed to get help that's not approved by Murkoff because you're putting the organization at the risk of being exposed.
Right. Now, Sin, we both have backgrounds that I think are relevant to Outlast here.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a PhD by research.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked as a researcher, and you work in clinical trials.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sin, I want to know, how do you think they designed this study?
It's hard to say how exactly it was designed.
It certainly is. I'm imagining it's like one of those Wile E. Coyote plans.
Oh my God.
Just a series of cartoonish blueprints with people being shoved into an orb.
But when we think of an experiment, I think
Uh-huh.
most of us think of a randomized controlled study. But you can have studies that have more than one intervention. You can have studies where the same participants receive one intervention and then later receive another intervention. You can have studies without a control group. But this is what I think they did. I think they went with a non-randomized controlled trial.
Right.
Someone assigned people to either the intervention or control group. So it was not randomly assigned. And why I think it wasn't randomly assigned is because Markov employees were automatically placed in the intervention arm.
Right.
So it doesn't seem random.
Yeah, yeah.
The subjects from the intervention group got the horrible therapy
Mm-hmm.
and were subjected to the morphogenic engine chamber and all that stuff.
Right.
The subjects in the control group, I think, were given usual care. And in this case, it may have been legitimate therapy. But in the end, they were also placed in the chamber as well.
So, what makes you think that there actually was a control group? This bizarre, weapon experiment. It's a mud part well, clearly I gotta follow standard practice. They're not monsters.
That's a very good question, Sophie. Remember Father Martin?
Yeah, the finger paint guy, yeah.
Yeah. So in the beginning, Father Martin had legitimate art therapy.
Yeah.
I think that's meant to represent usual care.
Right.
And I think he had that therapy because he started out in the control group. But eventually he got moved in the intervention group, and the art therapy was taken away and replaced by horrible therapy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm getting from this experiment is that the Murkoff Corporation is torturing people until their minds break.
Mm-hmm.
And then giving them control of an extremely dangerous super soldier nanomachine exoskeleton that is housed in the same room as the Murkoff Corporation's employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say that is an accurate description of what they've done, and can you see the potential flaws in this?
Yeah. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, so overall,
Yeah.
this is our little reflection. This is this is the Murkoff Corporation. You're doing your annual review, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're now at the reflection stage.
Mm-hmm.
Reflecting on all you've accomplished lately.
Yeah.
Would you call it a success?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
We have a document from Jennifer Rowland, which states,
my 14th autopsy of a Walrider patient, showing no more signs of accepting the therapy than any of the others. There have been slight gains in cell migration and morphogenesis, including effects similar to human growth hormone, but nothing to suggest the stable creation of a sentient independent swarm. So tired. Doubting my judgment. Will submit another request for leave. The psychological cost of using such far-gone and further provoked patients is more than I feel I can handle.
So it doesn't seem like they were doing really well with the study.
It's also highlighting the real victim of this study, which is the person who's shoving the tubes and nanomachines into you. Because you know what? After 14 of you die, and she's forced to cut you open, and she's like, oh, we haven't really learned anything. I feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That shows the type of person you have to be to work there, really.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sophie. Before we proceed, I'm going to introduce a new concept into this podcast.
Is it a character voiced by me? Because I think we have enough of this.
Lateral ascension.
Right.
This could either refer to the creation of a Walrider, the ability to control a Walrider, or both. And this was only achieved by one subject in the study, Billy.
Right.
So, over 4 years, hundreds or thousands of participants, one successful outcome.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's more than MK Ultra got.
Oh, shade.
We still don't have that truth serum.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, when I was young, back in the Union, I would watch a lot of American action movies. And a lot of them had the truth serum. So as a kid, I thought the truth serum was a real thing.
But that was the point of MK Ultra.
Uh-huh.
It was to experiment with different, like, mind-altering substances to
Hmm.
try and determine, like, if there was a state you could induce that people would be unable to lie and or you could brainwash them. Because the idea is if they captured, like, Soviet agents, they could subject them to some sort of, like, combination of hallucinogens or mind-altering substances or whatever, where they would just, like, spill the beans immediately.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which they did by getting a bunch of homeless people and people who'd been institutionalized and injecting them with random things to see what happened.
Real life is like horrible.
Yes, it is.
Makes Outlast look okay.
Honestly, yeah. No, but like if you did like an actual like video game based on this, I don't think you could sit through it.
Hmm.
You have to distance it slightly by making it about like the Walrider project survival horror thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can tell that they've done a lot of research into it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for them. They're from Montreal.
Why are those connected?
Because I'm from
It's
Montreal. It's good.
no, but
Montreal's good.
it's like you're saying good for them. They're from Montreal. Like I would not expect this from someone from Montreal. You did very well for people from Montreal.
No, I'm just saying I'm proud. Now, Sophie, back to whether
Yes.
the project was a success.
Yes.
And to add insult to injury, did you know that somebody was able to become a host for the Walrider without participating in Wernicke's stupid experiment?
No, because I'm assuming you need a morphogenic engine to do it.
Well, that's where things get a little murky.
Oh.
Because Miles Upshur,
Mm-hmm.
the investigative journalist who came to see what's going on at Mount Massive, he became a host for the Walrider without doing the stupid therapy. Now, if you remember, the idea is that by making a participant go through enough suffering, their
Yeah.
mind is brought to the brink, which makes them a host to the Walrider.
Yeah, that's again the William Hope Hodgson story we're talking about.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Miles Upshur, while going through the asylum, he saw so much horror that he became a suitable host.
Right.
So you can say, oh, well, doesn't that mean that Wernicke is right and successful? Well, no, because his specific treatment, his controlled therapy barely works. And one of the two people who became a host was not part of this.
So, Sin, as a clinical trials assistant, I need you to tell me, in your opinion, why did it work differently? Why did it work on one subject and one person who was just there?
Well, Sophie, can you tell me, what does it
Mhm.
mean to shine?
Here's the definition of shine. Of the sun or another source of light, give out a bright light.
Thank you, Google. I think in the world of Outlast, there are people who shine.
Hi, Sophie here. Sin's decided that the best way to explain the plot of Outlast is to compare it to Stanley Kubrick's 1980 adaptation of Stephen King's The Shining. Unfortunately, that means we have to explain The Shining. Well, there's been a lot of discussion over the years about what The Shining is about. To some people, The Shining is about the disestablishment of linear time as the past returns to haunt the present, forever stalking us through an anachronistic, timeless labyrinth and ending in an inevitable bloodbath. Others say it's about Kubrick faking the moon landing. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the middle. But hey, did you know that Outlast references The Shining in ways other than giving characters psychic powers? I don't actually know if those characters in Outlast had psychic powers or it was just Sin deciding that they did. In the Outlast Whistleblower DLC, there's a reference to Room 237, which is a very important part of The Shining, and in Outlast 2, they use the same pattern as the carpet in The Shining. However, it's on a tablecloth. For more great references to The Shining, look up the music video for Karma Coma by Massive Attack. Now, back to the podcast.
Basically, I think some people in the world of Outlast have
Yeah.
psychic powers.
Yeah.
whether they know it or not.
Okay.
Now, let's look at a consultation dated October 14th, 2012, from Markov Psychiatric Systems.
Patient claims to have progressed to self-directed lucid dream states, morphogenic engine activity observed at an unprecedented scale. Billy asked about the status of his mother's lawsuit against Murkoff and the Asylum. This represents a catastrophic breach in security despite Billy's claims that he discovered the truth in The Blood Dreams of Dr. Trager. Note, the only Trager on company records, one Richard Trager, is an executive from MRD. All orderlies and security personnel must be questioned and video security improved to include analytical biometrics.
We can go over the story of Rick another time if people are interested, but Billy absolutely knows things about him that others don't, and Billy likely got them from Rick's mind. So I think this is happening because Billy has this psychic potential,
Right.
and the horrible therapy he's exposed to makes his potential grow stronger.
He's like Tetsuo.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, the entire Shining thing was literally just to say some people have psychic powers.
Yes. When you take someone who has a psychic power, whether they know it or not, and expose them to traumatic experience, you unlock something within them.
Right.
By unlocking that something, you make them into a suitable host for the Walrider. You know how in the study they say that you can control the Walrider through lucid dreaming?
Yeah.
I think what they call lucid dreaming is actually psychic powers.
Right.
And the problem with the Walrider project is that Wernicke has been trying to trigger those psychic abilities in people who do not possess them.
Right.
So no matter how much he tortured the poor people in the facility, he would never turn them into hosts.
Okay.
So I think both Miles and Billy have some sort of abilities that get unlocked through traumatic experience, and that's why both of them were able to become hosts for the Walrider.
Well, you're doing a better job than the actual Murkoff Corporation at figuring this out. Because you've actually reached this, actually, it does seems to be down to, an individual, trait that some people possess based on the only two experiences of this thing happening. And Murkoff's put him in the engine. See what happens. I don't give a fuck.
Sophie?
Let me try the engine again. So this Walrider thing.
Yeah.
I am still somewhat unsure about whether it's something that is controlled by people or it can control itself.
Mm-hmm.
I get the impression you don't even know this.
No.
I don't think anyone knows. So I'm going to ask you, Sin.
Yeah.
Why does the Walrider possess Miles?
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't Miles possess the Walrider? I feel like there's a flaw in this thing's design.
Those are very good questions, Sophie. You've been asking excellent questions today.
I am used to auditing work.
I'm really not sure what happens there. I'm really not sure what goes on with the sentience of the Walrider and what is the relationship between the Walrider and the host. But it seems to me that after Miles unplugs Billy's life support and the Walrider no longer has a host, it's attracted to the next closest host as a magnet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like this project's been going a while.
Yeah.
Hasn't really accomplished much.
Nah.
At any point, did they think, maybe we should try something else?
We have a note to all personnel from Wernicke that states the following.
It states, do not worship the swarm. Now, I'm going to stop you there. If you ever get an email from your boss where the opening line is do not worship the swarm, get the fuck out right now. I don't give a fuck about NDAs. There's no legal issues that will affect you as a result of breaking the contract, ignoring your post are going to be worse than dealing with someone who can write with complete sincerity as a directive to their employees. Do not worship the swarm.
Thank you, Sophie.
So having established that, Do not worship the swarm, nor allow the delusions of the patients to influence your beliefs. Any sentient being based on this technology will be so far superior to us that illusions of godliness will be reasonable. We have always looked into chaos and called it God. We are now blessed with sufficient power that such belief could destroy us. Do not be tempted. Remember that you are scientists. I'm going to put those statements in a different order. Remember that you are scientists. We have looked into chaos and called it God. We are now blessed with sufficient power that belief could destroy us.
Whoa, Sophie, that's deep.
Remember that you are scientists. Do not worship the swarm. Okay, but this implies the Walrider is an entirely sentient, independent life form.
But is that what he's saying?
Because he's saying that, any sentient being based on this technology.
Mm-hmm.
So he's calling the Walrider sentient.
No, he's saying any sentient being based on this technology will be so far superior to us. I think he's saying the opposite. Basically, he's like, we're all science. Science. And then Father Martin is opposite. Father Martin is worshipping the swarm.
God, I've never seen this done in a story before. Is there a scene where the hero and the villain aren't so different?
So basically, we have Father Martin who's worshipping the swarm, and we have Wernicke who's saying, no, don't. This is not God. This is just science.
Listen to the Nazi. Don't worship the swarm. Instead, listen to me, a Nazi war criminal.
I think what this is showing is that he's really stuck in his ways.
Yeah.
And he's not considering alternate possibilities, whatever they may be.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. That's something that happens.
Yeah. It's also possible that he's doing this whole thing to get more money out of Markov. Just keeps failing and failing and failing, doesn't care.
So your theory is that the Walrider is drawn to people who have innate psychic powers, right?
And go through a traumatic experience.
Go through a traumatic experience.
Yes.
As probably the most qualified person associated with this experiment, with the best grasp of experimental design and ethics, do you think anyone else in the asylum is psychic?
Well, Sophie, interesting you ask that. I have in front of you 2 documents. The first one was written by Helen Granat. We've met her before. She's from the legal medication department.
The groundwork has been laid to ensure an uneventful egress for Rudolf Wernicke from the structural and financial systems at Mount Massive. His advanced age should alleviate any suspicions among contractors and employees, among whom he has cheerfully been nicknamed the Crypt Keeper, and legally speaking, he died years ago. I understand patients 14306-8 and 14279-1 and 14868-1 have already been scheduled for transit. We're all terribly excited at the obvious profit potential of the new project. My researchers have combed through Wernicke's files and found no mention of the 3 quote-unquote lucid dreamers. I think we can all safely assume that Wernicke was sufficiently distracted by the partial success of the patient Billy Hope, along with his own infirmity, to be ignorant of the real discovery at hand. Even minimal exploitation of these resources is hard to overestimate. I only hope the new facility is sufficiently shielded to allow female staff so I can see what comes with my own eyes.
Thank you, Sophie. And the second document is a memo that says the following.
Caution! Level triple black security protocols, including chemical restraint, physical restraint, and separate adaptive hyperbaric chambers to be used at all time in transit. Chemical stimulation is highly recommended for all personnel within 500 meters of the patients. Attempts at communication should be assumed to be hallucinations and disregarded. Facial disfigurement should not be taken as a sign of lost acuity. They are physically blind but not unseeing. It's another thing you should look out for if you find that in a memo. They may be blind but are not unseeing. If that's metaphorically written somewhere, fine, but if it's actually in just an office memo. Note, security clearances for Project Walrider will not apply to information regarding patients 14306-8, 14279-1, and 14868-1. New security clearances will be issued and appropriate protocols assigned.
So, we have here documents talking about 3 subjects that are being transferred to another facility for another project. Those subjects are referred to as lucid dreamers.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the memo describes them makes me think that they're a little bit psychic.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that this whole thing is done in secret from Wernicke, just like taking patients behind his back. So I'm guessing people are realizing he's not all that great.
What do you think tipped them off? So I'm led to believe that the Walrider project, it ends up being shut down for some reason.
Yes.
Can you walk me through what happened?
Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, on September 18th, 2013, there was a security breach which resulted in quite a few people at Mount Massive being killed. In response to what was happening, Markov dispatched tactical teams to take care of the situation, but they were all obliterated by the Walrider.
Well, then what did its job then?
There we go. And we also know that Miles Upshur, in the end, walked out of the institution. Now, we don't know whether, he was he even alive?
I'm still not sure what, they made the Walrider, right?
Yeah.
You control the Walrider through lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
But the Walrider also controls you.
Well, that's a good point, because the Walrider possesses Miles, and then Miles gets shot at multiple times, and then the Walrider destroys the tactical team that shot Miles, and then Miles and the Walrider walk out of the institution. So at this point, is Miles dead and the Walrider is wearing him like a puppet? Or did the Walrider bring Miles back to life? Because we also know that Wernicke tells us that Billy is keeping him alive somehow.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Walrider has regenerative properties.
But is the Walrider sentient?
I don't know.
No, but you as the Outlast expert.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Can you tell me, as far as you're aware, is the Walrider's sentience something that the game is intentionally presenting as ambiguous, like they may or may not have created life? Or is it that the game can't decide and it just changes between the main game and the Whistleblower DLC?
Oh, I think it's definitely ambiguous.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Because I'm thinking again of Ilo Ilo Lama Sabachthani, where it's they create this weapon. It's like an explosive. And they talk about how at the moment that it goes off, it uses a person as a conduit. The person sort of explodes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like he literally explodes, he lets loose this huge sort of force wave thing.
Okay.
And it's as it happens just at the moment of ecstasy that lets it out, that person sort of disappears and there's something else speaking through them that's described as a demonic voice. The implication being that it's being treated as if this is an explosive, but it's actually it's letting something else through when it explodes. So they're actually tapping into something that's sentient and alive and sort of hates everything, wants to destroy everything around. It's described as the guy who sets it off initially, he's a very devout religious man.
Uh-huh.
So his moment of sort of ecstasy that sets it off, he's reliving the experience of Christ on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
But when it happens, at that moment, what speaks through him is something else, and it's described as it's saying Christ's words, but in this mocking way.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, you thought this was your big moment of revelation, but it actually let something else through that's not what you thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that might be what they're going for.
Hi, Sin here, to elaborate on some of the similarities between William Hope's novel and Project Walrider. First, there is a document from the 1930s in which someone witnesses the Walrider, and they say, "I believe Wernicke's method has breached the spiritual realm. Something has crossed from the other side." Second, there is a recording of someone asking Wernicke the following: "You said Project Walrider was a gateway. A gateway to what?" But the tape ends there, and we don't hear Wernicke's answer. Finally, in the Baumach explosive, there is a scientist who is a religious man. And in Outlast, we have this juxtaposition with Wernicke's insistence that there is nothing supernatural about the Walrider, and Father Martin's worship of the Walrider. Not only does Martin Archambault worship the Walrider, he has his own Walrider church at Mount Massive. Moreover, Father Martin sacrifices himself for his cause being to bring a suitable host to the Walrider, his sacrifice being burning himself alive on the cross, in front of Miles Upshur. Father Martin believes that by making Miles Upshur witness enough horrible things, Miles will become a suitable host for the Walrider. So with all that in mind, it may be that the Walrider is not a simple nanite robot. The Walrider could be a portal or a conduit for a being from another place. And perhaps, at the end of Outlast, such a being is embodied within the Walrider and is using the Walrider to possess Miles, so it can go out into our world. Back to the podcast. Now I'd like to turn our attention to Wayland Park, the whistleblower.
Mm-hmm.
So the day before everything goes down, he attempts to expose the crime of the Markov organization by sending an email to a reporter. But Park gets caught and imprisoned in the asylum. In the end, he does escape the facility, and the events that happen with Wayland Park and Miles Upshur roughly happen around the same time, and they actually see each other as they exit the facility.
Okay.
At the end of the Whistleblower DLC, there's like a post-credit scene, I guess. Well, it's a pre-credit scene, but it's after a pause. Anyway, at the
that's just the ending. The MCU has poisoned our ability to talk about movies ending. It's the pre-credit scene.
Thank you, Sophie. We know that sometime later, Wayland does send an email out telling the world about the atrocities committed by the Murkoff Corporation.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is that in the end, Murkoff will be exposed.
Wouldn't a great ending be that, like, they're exposed and just no one cares, as a parallel to real life?
Yeah, it's like they're exposed and it's like, don't worry everyone, we got it under control. And then the CEO retires with like a $60 million severance package.
Yeah.
I think we need to end this on a positive note.
Okay. I'm just looking around in befuddlement, but alright.
So the positive note is that we did not go through this journey alone. In the streams, we had a few people who came in and encouraged us as we fought our fears and played this super scary game.
In a sense, they are the nanites that make up the Walrider that is the podcast.
Oh my god, yes!
Yeah. Also, you say we like I was in chat twice. I've never played Outlast.
So, we'd like to say thank you to some of the people who were there.
Sin would like to thank the following people for helping her face her fears and finally beat Outlast.
Yeah.
Souls at Zero, Emma McCoy, Jane, Winged Masamune, Ethics, Dominique, Nicole, Doomkitty, Joe, Danny, Pablo, Durf, Alhazred, G, Candles, Gablan, Dignity City Lunch Lady. Jesus Christ, what have we done? Agent Funk, Shook, Tutu, Without Horns, Allison, Otil, Paul, Salty Elephant, Pogo, Joe Collar, George, Autumn, Spudcaster, Candles, Mimi, Princess LC, Wave Sound, Holdsy, Cosmo, Nokafolk, Rochelle, Dank Moon Knight, Sistali, Acer, Arky, Nostalgic Douchebag, and many, many others.